Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Tiffany Pang, and I'm a junior consultant at Turner & Townsend. We are joined today by Richard Miller from Miller Klein Associates. This is a retrofit information support and expertise event, which is fully funded by the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, delivered by Turner & Townsend. I'll now hand over to Richard to start today's presentation.
Thank you very much, Tiffany, and good afternoon to everybody. So today we're going to be talking about making better use of supplier expertise, and our agenda is roughly to talk a little bit about why we need help from suppliers, the problem of the knowledge gap between you and your suppliers, the issue of how many people you've got available to you when you consider the whole supply chain, and then leading on to the value of open dialogue. Then we'll kind of break and any thoughts, comments, questions, experiences that you've had, and then we'll move into a little bit more detail and we'll talk briefly about the Procurement Act of 2023. It's not a topic about which I'm an expert, but Turner & Townsend does have experts, but it does indicate a direction of travel. And then a little bit of talk about some tools, the value proposition canvas, the use of workshops, the use of competitions to get the new solutions you're looking for. And then again, we'll pause for questions and comments. So, all right, this is a kind of map of an overall large-scale retrofit project that's taken from the Turner & Townsend website. This is from the retrofit project overview toolkit. And the point it's making is that these are quite complicated projects. This is not the same as doing your routine repairs and maintenance. And so there's a preparation phase, there's a delivery phase, there are things that happen after the retrofit is completed. There's complying with PAS 2035, either because you're receiving public funding or because it's a good standard to avoid things going wrong. And these are all the different kinds of activities that have to be considered. So it's different to routine work that you might already be doing. You're working at scale, you're needing to work at speed, and you're dealing with additional complexity. And the implication of that is that traditional procurement based on formal specifications just doesn't work as well. You're looking for new solutions. You're looking for creativity on the part of your supply chain and your contractors. And the kind of conventional stack of paper that people are forced to read through and respond to in a classic, RFI, RFP type process is not going to get you that kind of creativity and support. It's good for standardized products, for things you've done before, where your question is, as someone said, I need to buy so many million toilet rolls for this prison. Then standard procurement, what do I want? What's the specification? What's your price? When can you deliver? Those are the key questions. Here we're looking at something rather more complicated. We're looking for innovation, we're looking for new ideas, we're looking for alternative approaches. And that doesn't come naturally from the kind of approach which many of us have been used to in the way in which we do procurement. And the core problem is the gap in knowledge and understanding between the buyer and the seller. So if you are on the buyer side, you may be trying to articulate what it is you're looking for, and you tend to be thinking, this is a common problem, you tend to be thinking in terms of solutions I've seen before, things I'm familiar with, things that I know work. And so the entire approach tends to be one of saying, okay, this is what I want, and you're not aware of what is possible. You don't necessarily have the understanding of what alternatives are available. On the seller side, if you don't really understand what the buyer is looking for and what their problems are and why they're asking these questions, you can't use your creativity and your knowledge and expertise to make the connection with what they're trying to do. So you actually struggle to be able to sell your solutions because you don't know how they fit with the problems that the buyer is dealing with. So there's this kind of gap, and we need to find a way to bridge it. That's the core challenge, is building a ladder of logic that's going to start with, okay, we want to upgrade all our properties to EPCC. The problem we have is this, therefore we are looking for, and connecting that to the suppliers who can say our technology capabilities are this. This means we can solve these kinds of problems. Finding the language, finding the way in which you can bring people together to explore that and to bridge this knowledge gap is an important part of the process. Another problem is simply the recognition that very often, if you're on the buying side in challenges like this, in large-scale retrofit, you don't have much in the way of resource. And there are vastly more people with knowledge and expertise outside your organization than there are inside your organization. The question is, all that expertise is out there. How are you going to access it? And again, it can't be done, certainly can't be done easily by formal specification, because you lack the knowledge to be able to make a specification that's going to pull the right solutions from your supply chain. What you need is you need to create an open dialogue. You need to find a way to make your suppliers part of the team. And you need to find a way of exploring together how you're going to solve these problems, so how they can help you. So this is kind of the introduction. Okay, so talking about how you can get this kind of collaboration and engagement. So the Procurement Act 2023 is due to come into force October this year. And I'm not an expert in it, but one of the things that is a powerful nudge within it for a public sector procurement is flexible competitive procurement. So this is a process. This is, if you like, the alternative way of doing it to the, here's a specification, what's your price, when can you deliver? In which you can pre-qualify people through various routes to say that these look like they are capable of doing the job. And then, exactly as we were talking about earlier, you go through a discussion with them, an open dialogue that enables them to say, okay, if I understand what you're trying to do, then what you're asking for is not necessarily the right solution. There is a better way to get to where you want to get to. So it's specifically engaging them to solve your problem, not to respond to a static specification. So really, we've got the emergence. I mean, this has always been in public procurement rules of possibilities to do this, but now it's being much more pushed as saying this is a way you get the best out of your supply chain, out of your suppliers. You don't just put a specification out there. You engage them early. You bring them into the conversation. You bring them in potentially in the design phase to help you with those challenges. And it's there, and it's about public sector procurement, but of course, it's good practice for the private sector as well. So if you or your procurement team are not familiar with the flexible competitive procurement, they need to find out about it. And there are good videos on YouTube that kind of run through the basics. Tussle does one. I'm sure there are other people who do that. The procurement experts within Turner and Townsend can help you to understand it. It is a very different way of thinking. And one of the things that I have observed with a number of organizations is that you get pushback from the procurement team because it is more complicated. It's perceived by them as more risky, and very often they want nothing at all to do with it. So enabling your organization to take advantage of these methods which are being pushed as a better way to do procurement. There are skills and capability issues within your own organizations as well. So I'm just putting it out there. It's it really pushes the point that simple specification for standardized products is fine. If you're looking for innovation and looking for creativity, looking for help with actually solving a problem, then a flexible competitive procurement is a much better approach. Okay, the next thing I want to mention is something called the value proposition canvas. Now, this comes from an organization called Strategizer. You may have come across them. These were the people who built the business model canvas and a lot of tools to do with how you run a business and how you get creativity and innovation into a business. And this is a tool for people involved in marketing and understanding customers and figuring out how to solve the problems for the customers. However, it is also a great tool for bridging this information gap between buyers and sellers that you are going to face. So you look at the problem from two sides. You look at it from the customer side, and the key question here is, what are the jobs the customer wants to do, wants to deliver, right? What have they got to do? And very often a customer, so people like yourselves, will naturally use their existing knowledge to start to define exactly what it is they want. What you really want to do is talk more about where you want to get to, what you want to achieve. The more you talk about the detail of what you want at this early stage, the more you block the possibility of anybody outside your organization helping you to find a way forward. So my problem is I need to get to EPCC, not that's a better conversation starter than, I want this quantity of external wall insulation and I want windows like this. So this idea of customer jobs, what is it you're actually trying to achieve, is an important one. And what goes with that is what they call the pains, the things that get in the way, the things, oh God, I wish I didn't have to deal with that. I've got a real problem. I've got a blockage. This is getting in the way. I'm going to miss my delivery dates and all the rest of it because of these issues. That is a very, very useful way of thinking about the problem. And that goes with that, then the gain. So I wish I could. It would be nice if. Wouldn't it be fantastic if the price was lower and I could do it faster and solve my timing problem and get to the point I want to get to? So the way it's used in marketing is to understand the customer in terms of what it is they're trying to achieve. There's jobs to be done. But what gets in the way? What would they like to achieve? And then you match that with the actions from the selling side, which is where marketers use it to create the value proposition, what we're offering to the customer. And you talk about, well, this is how we can deliver those gains. This is the sort of thing we can do with our technology, with our products, with our processes, our understanding to help you reach these desirables in your journey. And we can solve these pain problems, because of the way we work, we can take away some of those pains that you've got. And that, of course, is delivered through the combination of products and services. Now, as I say, this is designed to be used by a selling company getting their marketing right to understand, but actually as part of the two-way conversation, if you think about it in that way, so going back to I'm bringing some suppliers in to talk about it, if you've already got, well, never mind the specification, this is what I must achieve. These are the objectives. And this is what's getting in the way. This is what is causing me trouble. This is what is giving me grief. And I also wish I could do this at the same time. If you can express yourself in those terms, you can help the supply chain to start seeing the connection between your jobs, pains, and gains and their offering and help you find the right solution. So as I say, it exists as a tool for marketeers, and therefore a lot of people are not aware of it or don't look at it, but actually it's a very good way of beginning to build that bridge. Another very good thing is kind of what we've been talking about in the conversation, which is workshops, which is bringing people together to collectively solve a problem. And right in the space we're talking about, I have a perfect example from a few years ago. So a collective of housing companies, private sector house builders, were trying to achieve a particular goal. They had some jobs to be done. What they wanted to do, their vision was, this was back in the days of the Code for Sustainable Homes, they wanted to achieve a code level for homes So that was significantly better standard than what they were typically building at the time. And they wanted to do it right now and to do it with no increase in prices. And as one of the architects who was involved told me, he said, well, what we want to do is we effectively need to build houses that are designed differently, made out of different materials and constructed on site in a completely different way. And we recognize, and also they've got to be attractive to our customers and they've got to fit the expectations of our customers. So we need our supply chain, and even people who are not in our supply chain, we need people to help us find a new way forward. And so they qualified quite a large number of potential suppliers for different aspects of the build, both on materials, construction methods, some of the design work. And they brought them into a series of workshops to say, okay, here's the problem. Let's have a kind of fairly open discussion about how we might go about fixing the problem and what each of you as potential suppliers can contribute to solving the problem. And I attended a couple of these, and it was absolutely fascinating because previously they'd been using, again, conventional procurement approaches. And so the people who made the doors and the windows had never met the people who put up the walls. And instantly, all these side conversations started to develop within the workshop about, well, why do you do it that way? Well, we do it that way because we thought you needed that, because someone said several years ago that that was the essential requirement for you. Oh, no, we've changed our processes. We don't need that anymore. And new solutions were just evolving just in that open meeting. And then, of course, some of those solutions were selected and went on to be applied. And the benefit to the house builders was they got what they needed. They got new solutions, new ways of working that solved the problems that they had identified. And of course, what the innovative supply chain got was the opportunity to say, I've got a solution, I can help you with this, and to find a new customer. And of course, there were suppliers who applied to be part of this process, who were very much, well, we've been doing this for 20 years. We've been supplying you for 15 years. We know exactly what's needed. We don't understand why this is going on at all, but if you want us to humor you, we will. And they tended not to make it through the process. So this bringing people together, creating these open fora where you can actually address the problems. Yes, it takes time, but it will find you those innovative solutions if they exist. And I've recommended that approach to anybody else who's been faced with this kind of problem because I was so impressed by what I saw there. Another approach you can use is competitions. So a competition, putting up funding to test something out. A little bit like what we were talking about earlier about having a trial contract with a new supplier. But you can express it in terms of, I'm looking for a solution to this specific part of the problem. I'm prepared to put a bit of money in to help you develop that solution. It's a really good way of bringing SMEs into the equation because SMEs often struggle to fund a bespoke development for a client if they don't know they're going to get a contract. So this idea of, well, we'll have a competition, we'll ask people to pitch their ideas, and then we'll select a couple of ideas we want to work with, and we'll try them out. And this is an approach that's used there's a whole process called SBRI, which stands for Small Business Research Initiative, which is used for public sector organizations to actually put out contracts to say, we are looking, we've looked in the market, we can't find a solution that fits what we want to achieve. We will put out a small amount of money and get some people to try to build some prototypes, test some ideas out, and then we'll select from that. So it's very, very good for the SMEs because it means that they get a contract which looks good in terms, as actual income, looks good in terms of talking to their bankers, and it's good for the recipient organization because they get a chance at relatively modest cost to try out some alternative approaches. And the important thing about this is whether you are public sector or private sector is that the KTN, the Knowledge Transfer Network, and the Catapult Centers, part of their role is to help you develop a competition and run a competition. So they can actually assist you to do this. They can connect you with the right people, and they can find a way of they'll find a way of enabling you to access this broader pool of expertise that can help you find better solutions. So just to wrap up the kind of presentation part of it and to refresh what you said. So large scale retrofit means doing things differently, particularly if you're going to be able to operate at the scale you will need to. And it's not just about any particular wave of funding or any particular program that's out there. Ultimately, you're going to have to do this to all your stock anyway. Right? That's where we're going. We've got to get to net zero, right? It's a legal requirement. There will be pressures. You will be made to do it. It will happen, whether you're a private rental organization or a public sector or a social landlord, whatever. We've got to get to net zero ultimately. And so there will be this continuous pressure to upgrade the stock to make it more efficient. The only way to get there is to change the way we do things. So large scale retrofit means doing things differently, and traditional formal procurement, which everybody is comfortable with, won't get you the best solutions. Part of the reason is this gap in information and understanding between buyers and sellers. You can't actually specify what you want in detail because you don't know what's possible. And they can't sell you their solutions because they don't know what you're trying to do. And to recognize that the supply chain has more people and more expertise than you're ever going to have. And if you can engage them and bring them into the team and make them part of the search for a solution, you get the best result. And then the tools which are available to do that, just mentioned, there's ideas like the value proposition canvas, which is a way of connecting the potential solutions they have with the jobs you are trying to do, the problems that you're having, and the desires for better solutions that you can express. Workshops are a great way to open up the conversation and find alternative solutions. I mentioned one specific one in detail because it was such a good example, but I've seen this done over and over again in multiple industries. That this idea of bringing people together to kind of thrash out, well, how might we go about solving this? Airbus do this quite extensively. A Jaguar Land Rover do it extensively in automobiles. So this idea of pulling people together and say, can we fix this? You might even take a group of housing providers and say, maybe in a geographic area, and you guys could get together and say, well, let's do a workshop together, because we've got similar problems. It's a bit like the benefits of a consortium. And then competitions, again, not necessarily widely used by people in social housing, but they are used in other parts of the public sector to find those innovative solutions. And then just reminding you that the Procurement Act 2023 has a very strong nudge within it about using flexible procurement, flexible competitive procurement, being open, involving yourself in conversations with the supply chain, pre-qualifying so you're not having your time wasted, but actually really getting into how might we together find the right solution, rather than just being arm's length. What's your price? How fast can you deliver?